Welcome back to the channel. In the last episode, we poured a ton of concrete and worked in the hot sun to immediately get rained out for 2 full days. And we left off with me legitimately not knowing whether or not this entire concrete pour was completely destroyed. So today, let's assess the damage. Alright, let's start off with some predictions. So my immediate concern is that this entire surface is going to be screwed up, or that we're going to have a lot of bleed out on the lower portion where the caulking was, but then that the seal got broken when it started raining. I also think that the top surface is going to be potentially not level, but probably like really textured from how much pooling was there, and also potentially from that top layer of saran wrap getting completely crinkled under all that water weight. When I put it on, I wasn't accounting for literally gallons of water to be pooled on the top of it. So that might have created an issue, and if so, this might no longer be level. Now this is mostly going to be covered by that first row, so it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be level at the large scale. If there's local spots that are a little bit too high, we can probably grind them down, and anything that's too low, we'll just have to figure it out, because quite honestly, I don't have a good solution for that, and if I see this big gap on the bottom row, it's probably not going to look great. But that's enough procrastinating, or as I like to call it, hypothesizing like a true scientist, so I guess let's look at it. Now fortunately, something did go as planned. The entire mold came off very easily because of the WD-40 that I sprayed prior to putting in the concrete. The only place that I apparently missed is this back corner on what I would probably call the inside of the elbow. And it's not even that I missed that section, it's that the concrete flowed under it and then onto the backside, and I did not spray the backside. So the backside is really what it's stuck to. As you can see there, it took a little bit of persuasion with the sledgehammer to get that loose. Otherwise, this was a relatively seamless process. So now let's take a look at the final product. The good news is that my predictions were almost completely 100% accurate. The bad news is that my prediction was that this surface is going to get absolutely destroyed, and it did. You can see here the wrinkles in the top are pretty significant. Some of it's pretty clearly from water pooling, and some of it's from that saran wrap, but this thing looks a lot less like that nice smooth surface we left it as, and a lot more like the surface of Mars. There's also a number of low spots, and they're bad enough that I can pick them up just by eye, and while I can see them through the footing, the biggest area that I can see it is in the part of the walkway that we patched in the front. That was the widest section, so I'm not really surprised because it makes sense that the water had more area to pool there, but in my opinion, it just doesn't look great. I might have to touch that up later. It also washed out a several foot section of this leading edge in the front, and we'll see how bad it looks at the end, but there's a good chance that I'm going to have to touch both of these up in the future. But moving on to some good news, all these little craters and imperfections, because it's from the water falling really hard, they go down and they don't go up, which means they're not going to interfere with the lumber that we put on top of the retaining wall. That's good, because if they did, we would have to grind those down. The other thing is that just based on what I can see visually, all the low spots are relatively localized, meaning less than a foot. So if I still put that 8-foot piece of lumber over the top of this, it shouldn't really impact or be too visible on that scale. The last thing to remember is that due to the width of the lumber that's going on top of this, only about an inch, maybe 2 inches of the leading edge is going to be visible of that top surface. So all these other wrinkles and imperfections, for the most part, are a little bit more towards the center line. Even on the cases where they are exposed close to that leading edge, the reality is on the final product, there's not going to be enough surface exposed there to really draw your attention, so it shouldn't be noticeable. Which means the next step at this point is just dry fit it and see how it looks and make sure that we're okay with it. Absolute worst case scenario, we could grind a little bit of this down and refill it, or just build up on top of what's currently here. I really don't want to do either of those. I think that has a lot of risk and not really a lot of reward. And even with what I'm seeing here, it already looks so much better than what I had before that I'm probably going to be okay with this. So we're just going to dry fit it, and if it looks good, we are going to send it. The only thing that I think might be a real problem is this gap here in the corner. You can see there is a visible ridge between the part that's running left to right and the part that's coming straight in. But like I said, we're not going to have that answer until we start dry fitting this. Just a little bit of perspective here. This monsoon certainly didn't help things, but it could have made things a lot worse. And I mean a lot worse. So let's resume next time when we're actually doing the dry fitting to determine whether or not we're going to have to redo any of this. But for now, this does look usable to me. So I'm going to close this one out. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.